Ladies and gentlemen, an unfortunate paradox exists within World of Warships Legends. It's a paradox that I like to formulate in the following way. Destroyers are the most influential class of ship in this game. More often than not, it's going to be the destroyer play that decides the outcome of any particular battle, or at least heavily contributes to that outcome. So, destroyers are the most important class, but paradoxically, at the same time, they suck. And I don't mean destroyers as a class suck, I mean the way that people generally play destroyers sucks, particularly when it comes to capture the base mode games. I think it's a little bit easier on domination when you've got 3 different capture circles on the map. It's pretty clear, I think, to most destroyer players that they should probably sail to one of those capture circles and maybe try to take it. Maybe it's not always 100% clear to destroyer players, but you see them doing it more often. In Capture the Base mode, there's only one capture point for each team, and the games are often not decided by the capture of that capture point. Instead, they're more often than not decided by how many ships are sunk. And this leads people, I think, when they take destroyers into a Capture the Base mode game, to focus on chasing damage. But that's not the only way you get ships sunk as a destroyer. Take note of this flank where we spawned, and note that we're pushing out to it. It's the western flank of the Haven map. We spotted a Colbert, a Minnow, a Yamato, and some other battleship out there, losing vision of them momentarily as we smoke up to get some shots on this Colbert, and the reason for that is we want to distract him as much as possible as those torpedoes come in, because, we want to mess up his maneuvering so that he actually eats them. And he does. He eats 2 of them, goes down as our first kill of the game, awarding us the first blood medal and devastating strike. Our smoke screen is in our way from spotting, but we're going to go around it here and reacquire vision of some of these ships. Take note of the battleship kiting toward the back of the map. This is not a bad thing. That battleship is a Yamato, and I think that Yamato is actually going to come out number 1 on the leaderboard in front of me, which leads me into my first point with destroyers in Capture the Base mode. What you need to do, what your priority needs to be, much more than killing other ships, torpedoing battleships, all the things you see destroyers doing, what you need to do is provide vision for your team. Part of the reason the Yamato behind me gets such a good score by the end of this game is because of the vision that I provide him. If not for me, it would be very difficult for him to see the ships that are on this flank, and thus difficult to damage them and get XP and awards. So that's number 1, is you want to keep vision for your team. There's some things that might prevent you from doing that. For example, the Minotaur has smoked up in front of us, and as a consequence, we can only see the Montana. But given there's this smoke screen here, and a Minotaur inside it with a Montana pushing across, well, we're going to launch our torpedoes and hope that they catch either the Minotaur or the Montana. Of course, they could catch nothing if the Minotaur is using tactically sound strategies. He's got his smoke screen, or he's got his sonar on while he's in his smoke screen because he understands smoke screens are torpedo magnets. So those torpedoes might not hit anything. He might spot them for the Montana and also the Yamato pushing in. But, there's always a chance that in situations like that, your torpedoes can be dual or even triple or quadruple purpose. Unfortunately, these torps end up hitting nothing, and we're not doing a very good job of spotting for our team, you might have noticed. This island is between us and the 4 enemy ships that are over here. But we wanted to come into the center, because as good as the Daring is, one thing that it can't be accused of is being particularly fast. It has a rather pedestrian speed, and we saw some torpedoes incoming from the center of the map over here at the friendly cruiser hiding behind the island. So we wanted to come out and try to counter any enemy destroyer that might be occupying the center. We have no destroyer coverage in the center, and since torpedoes came from the center, it makes sense that we would want to go there and try to find the destroyer responsible for launching those torpedoes. Now, he doesn't seem to be here, but that's okay, because this Yamato is pushing in. which he might think is an okay thing to do, but in fact, it is actually a terrible idea for him. Our torpedoes are nearly off cooldown, and if this Yamato does what I think he's going to do, which is turn to the left and sail across this island, he's going to be making the cardinal mistake of battleship players, which actually he's making several mistakes. One is pushing into superior numbers. He's being shot at by my friendly cruiser and potentially two of my friendly battleships, maybe even two of my friendly cruisers. He's pushing into the center of the map, where if he wants to disengage from that focus fire, his only choice is to turn and put the island between himself and me, which means he has no ability to maneuver against these torpedoes. He's just telegraphing his movements right in a straight line, and that makes it very, very easy to line up the torpedo salvo. And since these are British torpedoes, you can get pretty accurate with the single fire here. Accurate enough, in fact, that the Yamato, which does have good torpedo reduction, is able to be dev-struck by 4 Daring torpedoes. So there's our second kill of the game, and second devastating strike, by the way. Speaking of the Daring's pedestrian speed, the Minotaur is encroaching on our position, so we do need to get away. He could come around that island at any point and be a very big threat to us, and this is where we make a little bit of a miscalculation. We want that Minotaur to come out from behind that island so we can spot him, so we shoot at that Montana to deliberately get ourselves spotted, hoping that the Minotaur will see us and think, a destroyer within like 5 kilometers of me. I need to go out and I need to kill him. And as a result, he'll be spotted by me so that my teammates can shoot him. Well, the Minotaur does do that, but he does that when our guns are still off cooldown, so he spots us and we're forced to smoke up. But we do provide spotting momentarily. Our teammates shoot at him. I don't know whether they connect or whether they miss, but he's still floating. So we need to get vision on him again. Note that we're not really trying to kill the Minotaur ourselves. We're trying to get vision of him because we've got 2 battleships behind us that could dev strike the Minotaur in a single salvo. They can't do that, though, if they can't see him. Spotting, the most important thing you can do in a destroyer. And speaking of which, we are the final remaining destroyer on the blue team, and we completely miscalculated. The Minotaur is within 4.6 kilometers of us. We have a concealment range of 5.5. We're almost a kilometer out from our concealment range, so we have to run away very quickly, which can be difficult to do when you don't have an engine boost. Luckily, the Minotaur is an AP-only ship, so there's a chance that some of his shells might ricochet off what little armor we do have, whereas if he had HE, things might be worse. But it ends up working out anyway, because our spotting does get the Minotaur killed by our 2 battleships. So we're in good shape now. We've only lost 3 ships. The enemy team has lost 4. A good amount of that is due to me. I am responsible for sinking half of the ships the enemy has lost, and my spotting was integral to the downfall of that Minotaur. And now, we're just concerned about the location of the final remaining enemy destroyer. We see RPF pointing in front of this Minotaur's smokescreen, so we know that's where the destroyer is, and it is a Shimakaze. Sure enough, right on cue, there appear the Shimakaze torpedoes. Perhaps the Minotaur in that smokescreen did not get the memo that smokescreens are, in fact, torpedo magnets. Well, actually, never mind. It wasn't the torpedoes that took him out. It was the Montana. Courtesy of the Shimakaze's spotting, he was so close to the Minotaur's smokescreen that he was able to see the Minotaur because of the smoke firing penalty. Unfortunate for that guy, but fortunate for us, we know right where the Shima is. We know he's sailing toward the left of the screen, so if we go right a little bit and slip into this smoke screen, we may even be able to spot the Shima with our sonar without him even seeing us. And we do. Our sonar range is like 3 kilometers for ship detection, just enough to spot this Shima and get a couple free salvos on him before he has time to respond. He does respond with torpedoes, not necessarily the most efficient response because those torpedoes come nowhere near us and we're able to take out the Shima as our 3rd kill of the game. And more or less, this wraps up the game for us. Note that we're the only destroyer left alive in the entire game. This is important. Now, we haven't done a Herculean amount of damage. We've only done 77,000 damage, and we do have 2 dev strikes, one of which is on a cruiser, one of which is on a battleship, and then we took away the HP of most of a destroyer. So, while it's not a huge amount of damage, it is good quality damage. That's damage from 2 dev strikes, that's 2 ships gone, and damage from a destroyer. In fact, I think we took away the majority of the Shimakaze's health relative to the teammates we had assisting us with the Shima. So that's quality damage. And the game rewards you, by the way, on the quality of your damage. It does not reward you on the amount of your damage. It makes no difference if you get 150,000 damage or 50,000 damage. 50,000 damage can be more valuable than 150,000 damage, because you could get 150,000 damage by taking away, say, 20% of the HP of 4 battleships, right? Maybe that's not exactly a right number, but you get the idea. You can shoot at battleships, take away a lot of their hit points, and get 150,000 damage. Or you can get 50,000 damage by dealing exclusively with destroyers and taking away all their HP. So say you've shot at and killed or mostly killed 4 destroyers, you get 50k. You've shot at and not mostly killed a larger number of ships of varying classes, and you get 150,000 damage. Well, you probably get more XP and more rewards against the destroyers, because this game, again, rewards you for damage quality, not damage quantity. And by that, I mean your reward is based on the percentage of an enemy ship's HP that you remove. And it's easier to remove the HP of a destroyer because there's less of it, and they have no armor. Thus, destroyers are pretty much the most lucrative class of ships you can shoot at. So this little aside is all to say that while we haven't done a lot of damage, we've done quality damage. We've done more than 50% of the HP to a cruiser, a battleship, and a destroyer. Even though we haven't hit 100,000 damage, that is useful damage. That is quality damage. That's a lot of the HP of our enemies. And furthermore, we've spotted our enemies for our teammates to shoot. I think that is why the Yamato in this game is going to end up having such a good game. He's actually going to get more XP than we do. And basically, those are the things that I think you need to remember when you are playing Capture the Base mode on destroyers. It is absolutely not about getting the highest damage number you can get. The high damage number is not irrelevant, but not your main priority. Your main priority is spotting and countering the enemy destroyers, which you do by spotting them and shooting them with your guns. And if you do that on a Capture the Base mode game, and you stay alive till the very end of the game, so that you can be useful for your team, well, you can contribute very well to the win. That game was carried by the Yamato and myself. We both got 3 kills. He got a little bit more XP than me, but I don't think his kills or his score would have necessarily been possible had we not been there to spot for him. So that's my message for you today in a destroyer. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.